Hello everyone, welcome back to baking. Today we're going to be making cake muffins. And we're going to preheat the oven to 170. And gas on 3. Let's get going.
Welcome back to baking. My name's Jack.
My name's Paul.
And this week, Paul's made some fantastic carrot cake muffins.
We have my fail-safe, isn't it?
It's the standby, it's the classic, it's everything you want in a small cake that fits in the palm of your hand.
That's carrot cake, it's cream cheese frosting. What's the not to like?
Exactly. Here you go, you've got your recipe, you've got your bowl, your grater, your chopping board. What else have we got on the go? We've got the scales.
And I'm assuming there's a couple of carrots involved.
Oh, here comes the carrot.
Oh no, it's just a carrot.
A big carrot.
It is.
Right, so we're grating that carrot to start things off.
So we're going to grate that carrot, and we want 100 grams of grated carrot to start off with. It's easier to start off with these first.
Would I weigh me carrot beforehand to see how big of a carrot I want?
You can do, because usually I don't take it down right to the stem, so you're going to lose about 20 grams.
Right.
So if it weighed 130, just grate it down to where the stem is, or where the green tube comes out.
Or be prepared to eat a bit of extra grated carrot, I guess.
Yeah, you can do. Grated carrot's lovely. Stick it in your salad.
Just don't waste it.
Yeah, just don't waste it. And if you do have to waste it or you don't want to use it, stick it in a composter, because at least it's going to go back into the ground and provide some nutrients for your plants and stuff.
Now, if you want to grate your carrots like Paul and make an absolute mess all over the counter, feel free to do so.
Yeah, otherwise you can use a food processor.
Or just use a normal box grater that's going to keep it all in one place.
Do you know what? I actually don't like them.
You don't like box graters?
No, because what tends to happen is you get so far, and because it's all condensed in one corner, it squeezes the juice out of the carrots.
Oh, you're doing it wrong. You just got to move your box grater across as you go. There's a technique I'll show you later.
So what I tend to do is do all your dryish.
We've grated all the carrot. We're zeroing the scale.
Yeah, and then you're going to weigh it out.
Right. So we're aiming for 100 grams.
I mean, if you go a little bit over, I wouldn't worry too much, because it's just going to add more moisture to the cake, and a nice moist cake is what you want. Yeah?
So tea towel out, because we're about to do some chopping.
Yes, I'm going to chop
chopping
your walnuts
board on the go.
So I find it easiest to start with this bit, because you can just put them to one side when you're
doing all the bits that require a bit of a chopping board, a bit of faffing around.
Yes, all the faffy bits, get out of the way.
Nice sharp knife.
Yes.
It's important that your knife is sharp, because you don't want to crush your walnuts, you want to chop them.
Yeah.
And also you can use it to open packets. As usual, if you're not comfortable using a knife, or it's not safe for you to use a knife, please ask someone to help you.
I mean, we did discuss this later on, that can you get chopped walnuts? And I said I don't think you can.
Or not easily,
Not easily, I don't think. But with this, you want 50 grams of chopped walnuts.
And again, this could go in a food processor or a little blender or whatever.
You just don't want it too fine.
But yeah, you want some nice chunks.
Yeah, and you don't want it too thick either. Because
This is your texture, isn't it?
Yeah, these are your textures. You want a bit of bite, but not too much of a bite. And if you were making a carrot cake loaf, it would just make it hard to cut, because you get chunks. So just roughly chop them up into smallish pieces. Like so. Just keep chopping.
And this is down to your personal preference. How big of a piece of walnut do you want in your carrot cake muffins?
I mean, in the muffins, it doesn't make that much of a difference. You can be a bit more rough, because you're just biting into it.
Mm-hmm.
But with your loaf cake, if you're making a loaf cake, because you're going to cut it later on to get a clean slice, you don't want to be cutting into a big piece of walnut and it just rips the cake apart. So yeah.
There we go. So walnuts in the bowl, carrots in the bowl, ready to rumble.
Ready to rock and roll on to the next stage, which should be the wet ingredients.
First, let's do a bit of tidying up. It's always important to work in a clean space.
Yep.
Paul loves to wipe down the counter with tea towels and then just throw things on the floor.
Well, I know that's my dirty tea towel. I just keep it with me.
Here we go. So we've got the jug and some vegetable oil.
Vegetable oil on the go. So we need 100 mils of vegetable oil,
Bear
which
with
I'm
us
going to weigh out.
while Paul unlocks his computer and tries to remind himself of the rest of the recipe.
I know, because it's 111.
It's 100,
It's all
100,
111.
100. So 100 mils of veg.
100
oil.
mils of vegetable oil.
You can use sunflower if you want. Paul likes to use vegetable. It's what he's always used.
It's what I've been taught on. It's always vegetable oil.
So it might slightly alter the flavour. We wouldn't recommend olive oil because it's got too strong of a flavour, and it doesn't actually work quite the same.
It doesn't quite work the same, but I will admit it. Once upon a time near the harbour, I did make a cake with Mark Cowan to take to Max's because we were running late. I made it with vegetable olive oil.
Let me just temporarily interrupt you there. Sugar's going in the bowl.
Sugar's going in.
Zeroed bowl.
It's 100 grams.
Right.
100
Now
grams of caster sugar.
Carry on with your side story.
So the cake was made with olive oil. It was a chocolate cake made with olive oil.
And how did it taste, Paul?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, you could pick out. It was just plain olive oil. It wasn't like a very flavoured olive oil.
Not chili oil.
No.
Not basil oil.
I mean, that worked. Chili oil with a chocolate cake.
Maybe that's a future recipe. Okay, so here comes your egg.
So it's one egg because we're following the 111 principle.
So where normally you'd have creamed the butter and sugar together, there is no butter in this recipe. So we're just going straight in with the egg and the oil. Because the oil is your fat.
Yeah. The oil is your fat. So sugar, oil, egg, whisk it together.
And this is the beauty of using vegetable oil instead of butter, is that it's actually quite easy to combine with the sugar, so you don't need to worry about doing that extra step of creaming.
Yeah, you don't have to cream it as much. You just need to get a little bit, make sure it's all incorporated and come together.
Which is going to be much easier than you might expect.
Yeah.
There you go, look at that. He's whisking and already it's looking like it's coming together nicely.
Yeah, this recipe just flies. Once you get it all ready, set up to go,
you're flying
It
high.
just comes together so quick. I mean, it's probably the baking time that takes longest.
There we go. So you've got a lovely smooth consistency. Everything looks combined nicely. We're going to stick it back on our scale for some reason. Tap the whisk
because I'm going to add the flour. Now your dry ingredients come into
Here
it.
we go. Even though sugar is a bit of a dry ingredient, we've already got that in there. So we zero those scales. We get the scoop on the go. How many scoops is it going to take this week? 7, 6, 5, 4. No,
3.
don't be too confident. Don't even say just 1 because it's
I'm
not.
going to say 3.
Okay. So here's 1.
3.
A little dibble. A little double.
No,
2.
it's just 2.
Got it in
Boom.
2.
See, that's how much I've done this recipe before.
100 grams of flour.
It was 100 grams of plain flour.
So just to recap, we've got 100 grams of sugar, 100 grams of flour, 100 grams of carrots, and 100 ml of veg oil.
For this one, it definitely is plain flour. Don't use self-raising because this is your rising agents that you're going to add in.
There we go. So we've got bicarbonate.
So bicarb,
And
baking powder,
got
and all your spices.
Some mixed
so
spice, some ginger, some cinnamon,
and
some vanilla.
This all just goes in.
This is where I get excited and say cinnamon makes everything better.
It does. It
And
truly does.
One of my favourite shows of ever is Seinfeld, and in Seinfeld he literally says, whenever anyone asks what's in a baked good and it's good, the answer is cinnamon. It's always cinnamon. Cinnamon makes all cakes good. Anyway, so in goes your bicarb and your baking powder. How much of those are we adding?
So it's half a teaspoon of each of these ingredients.
Cheeky little half
Half a teaspoon. I mean, with your spices, you can go a little bit heavy. So you can go do a heaped half a teaspoon.
Depending on your personal flavour preference, doesn't it?
Because like we said, it makes it better.
Yeah. Cinnamon. Love with the cinnamon. Yeah, so if you want to go for a bit heavier on the spices, or if you're not that fond of one of the spices, don't put as much in. But I'm just going to say now, if you don't put enough cinnamon in, you're not my friend. But if you put way too much cinnamon in, it's probably not a good idea. I'll warn you now.
Yeah, you can overdo it, like, I'm not going to lie.
There is a limit.
Yeah.
So in goes that lovely, lovely cinnamon.
And a bit of ginger.
One thing we didn't realise with these measuring spoons is they don't quite fit in the spice pots.
No, they don't. I just gently guide it out. I think the ginger is the hardest one because it tends to clump up.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit lumpy there. There we go, in goes the ginger.
I've never had a ginger where it's just nice and powdery, like the cinnamon and stuff.
And here we go, a lovely bit of vanilla extract. Is this also a half a
I
teaspoon?
think it's half a teaspoon for this as well.
Oof, there we go, it's the hundreds and halves. It's nice and easy, this.
It is. It's pretty...
The only one that doesn't conform is the 50 grams of walnuts.
Yeah.
But then you could say that's half of 100.
It is, so you're going with the half.
There you go.
What's your half? So it's all ones and halves.
So mixing that flour and those spices in and that vanilla extract, we're just looking for it to start coming together, right?
Yeah, so
This
you
is
just
where
want to
it's
make
gonna-
sure it's all your flour's like spread out.
You don't want any lumps
you
of
haven't got any
flour.
lumps.
It's going to be a nice smooth batter.
I mean, you can sieve your flour if you wish. I don't believe it makes a massive difference,
Oh,
to be honest with you.
you're a heathen.
I am.
Absolute barbarian.
If you can get enough air into your cake and mix it around.
There we go. So, in goes your walnuts and your carrots from earlier.
This is your last stage.
This is going to cause it to it's going to come together quite firmly now, isn't it?
It comes together, but it also loosens up because of the water from the carrots.
So it's initially going to come together.
It'll come together and then it'll loosen off.
Right. So don't be too worried if it starts to clump up at first, because the moisture from the carrots will release and help it.
Absolutely.
See,
That's
this is
why
where
I add them last.
This is where I would really want to add just a little pinch of salt, and that's just me.
But you add the carrots last because sometimes your flour sticks to the carrots.
Right.
And then you get clumps of carrots, clumps of flour around your carrot, and you don't want that.
No.
That's why it's the last stage. And
What do you
plus it
think,
helps
Paul?
it to loosen up.
Would you chuck a little pinch of salt in there? What do you think of that?
I'm actually tempted to try it in future,
Just to give it that little bit of a boom.
just to see what happens.
So now it's everyone's favourite time. How many cupcake cases is Paul going to use? So we got the cupcake cases, muffin cases, we've got a muffin tray and a spatula.
I'm gonna go straight out and say 8 because I'm a genius.
Because you already know. Because we checked this the other day. But what are you going to do now? Which I think I suggested.
You did suggest this, and I'd recommend it because it's a good way of getting your cupcakes in to your cupcake cases a lot easier.
So what we're saying here is that the using of the jug.
Tip it into a jug, and it just encourages it to go into your cupcakes nice and evenly. And I think I use a spatula to just encourage it to gently come out.
You will
as
see
well.
that now that you still need to use a spatula or a spoon to kind of guide it out of the jug in an even way.
But I actually like this method. I think it works tremendously well.
Much easier than a big bowl.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're sticking some cupcake cases in the muffin tray, or muffin cases, whatever you want to call them.
Well, usually I try and spoon it in with a spoon.
And that's disastrous.
Well, it does work, but if you haven't got the dexterity...
We're feeling confident. We're going for 9, 10, 11, 12. But as Paul's cheated and already checked the video, he's remembered that it is 8.
But like I said, if you haven't got the dexterity and you find it hard.
Look at that. See, it makes it into a nice little channel, and you just use your spatula to control the pour.
Yeah.
I love it, Paul. I love this technique.
Again, you're looking to just fill it just over half.
Cool.
Just over halfway is what you want. And that should get you a nice even bake.
It's another half. Hundreds and halves. It doesn't make 100 cupcakes, though.
It does not.
I really want to call these cupcakes, but you've insisted on putting muffins in the recipe. Why is that, Paul? Please discuss that with me.
I don't know. Just because that's what we used to call them in cooking.
I think I have a feeling that I googled this the other day, and as soon as you add icing, it's a cupcake.
It is. I think technically.
So technically, these are cupcakes
Yeah.
because you're going to ice them in a minute, aren't you? Anyway, so you can see, as usual, go through until you feel like you've got at least halfway through in a few of them, and then if you've got a little bit left at the end, you can always go out and even them out.
I think a muffin as well is a bit more dense.
Yeah, I feel like that was the difference. Was the muffin was more of a bread, technically. Anyway, doesn't matter.
It does.
So as you can see, we've gotten to the 8th one. Paul's thinking to himself, I haven't really got enough for a 9th.
So I'm just going to top off all the rest so they're all even.
Just a few little bits in the ones that seem like they're not as tall as the others. The thing is as well, with all that carrot and stuff, it's going to settle. So it might look quite full, but then the carrot might all lie down flat.
Yeah.
And it will
Once
be
it
less
gets
full
warm,
than it looked.
It'll flatten out and rise.
Yeah, and also, you're putting it into that case and it's going to settle in there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you saw there was 2 or 3 of them that he was not happy with. He's topped off. There we go.
They all look about even
those
to
4
me.
muffin cases can go back in for another day when we use them unnecessarily again.
See you later.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to head over to the oven momentarily after Jack's faffed about with the camera. There we go.
There we go. Ready to go in.
If any of you ever notice any weird pauses in the video, it's probably because I walked away from the camera and Paul's going, I'm done, Do you want to stop recording now? And I've got to run back over and press stop.
Bye, carrot cake muffins.
Oh, see you in a minute, muffins. Look at this. Are you ready?
See you when
3,
you are.
2, 1. Oof! Look at that. Beautiful domes.
Nice little dome on them. Come to the top.
What more
Perfect.
could you ask for?
Perfect.
So as usual, we've included a cooking time in the recipe, but please use your best judgment. Look at them regularly When they're starting to look a little bit darker brown and they've got a lovely dome to them, they've risen, that's it. Get them out the oven. Don't mess around.
You can also check them as well, like I am, with a knife.
There we go. Look, if a paring knife or a cake tester comes out clean, then you know.
I mean, ideally, you're supposed to use a skewer. Do you like a metal skewer?
Well, you can get specifically cake testers.
Yeah. And then
Have you ever seen the thing chefs do where they poke it with the cake tester and then they put the cake tester against their top lip, just below their nose?
Yeah.
And apparently they can tell, because it's a very sensitive part of the body, they can tell exactly how hot the food is.
Yeah. There's a few that go off smell.
Yeah. It's
like,
nuts.
they don't even check it. They just... I mean, to be fair, I actually know by smell. And just by looking at it. Sometimes.
I suppose that depends on your kitchen as well. If you're used to your kitchen and your oven, you know those smells that are going to start coming from your oven at a certain time.
Yeah.
It becomes a bit automatic. So the reason we're taking them out there, using just a knife or a fork or something to get them away from the edge, put them on a cooling rack to cool completely. Very important that they cool completely.
Before you start this stage.
Yeah.
Before you start your cream cheese frosting.
It might be tempting to think to yourself, well, they're not that warm, I'll start making my frosting now. This frosting doesn't really want to be sitting around.
And it doesn't want to sit on a warm cake.
And it definitely doesn't want to sit on a warm cake.
Because it will just melt.
And it's also important, don't leave those cakes in the tray to cool. It's a bad idea. Anyway, here we go. Bowl, scales, knife, butter.
Yes.
Soft cheese.
All of the above.
Icing sugar, blender. We've got it all here. And this is another one of them where the butter really needs to be warm, right?
It does. It needs to be really soft.
And the cream cheese as well. Did you leave that out?
I did leave the cream cheese out because I like to leave it out
Room
so
temp.
it comes to room temperature.
I think the butter was out all morning.
Yes.
Like a good few hours at least.
I
think the cream cheese came out like half an hour before we did this.
About an hour before. Just take it out.
There you go. Get it to room temp.
So it's on this one. So you want 38 grams of butter. And then you want 225 grams of icing sugar.
Well, say goodbye to those lovely measurements that were all 150 and everything else.
Yeah, this is where it goes right out the window.
38 grams exactly.
Yeah, it's all over the show on this one.
I mean, the important thing here as well is these are just the proportions. So if you want to make more icing, then you can just, as long as everything stays the same in relation to each other, you can up the numbers or down the numbers.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're making double the quantity of carrot cake muffins,
you do 76 grams of butter,
yeah,
450 grams of icing sugar, and it'll be 94 grams of cream cheese in a minute.
But I think this makes ideally the right amount of cupcakes.
This worked well.
I think it did.
I think we were happy with this.
So you want your cream cheese frosting. But you're not going to add this in just yet. You're going to incorporate the butter
Just
and
getting
icing
that
sugar.
ready.
Yeah, I'm just getting it ready so it's ready to go.
You don't want to be waiting around. Once you've started mixing, get on the go.
Yes.
Stopping is the worst thing for buttercreamy icings.
Yes, absolutely.
And here it is, icing sugar clouds all over the place, making everything sticky, making me on a sugar high because I was breathing it all in.
So the reason I do this is to break down the butter and incorporate it with the icing sugar before you add the cream cheese. Because if you add all of it together, your cream cheese becomes too loose, and it'll also stop the butter from thinning out, so you don't get clumps of butter in your cream cheese frosting.
You want it to start to combine.
Yes, you want it all to combine.
And it's just something to do with the science of it makes it work better this way with the butter first, yeah?
Yes, because you want to break the butter down as much as you can.
That makes sense. So here we go.
Because the cream cheese just covers it and it just doesn't break down. Otherwise, I've tried it. I've ended up with clumps of butter.
Not good.
No.
I mean, I don't think I'd complain. I love a bit of butter.
So this is 94 grams of cream cheese.
94 grams, there you go.
94
so if you were doubling it,
grams of cream cheese.
double it. You do you. We're not going to judge you.
And then just bring it all together. So you don't want to over whip this one because your cream cheese will go looser and looser.
Right, so
And
once it's
softer.
looking smooth and white,
Yeah.
you don't see any lumps, stop.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I did technically slightly overdo this because I was seeing a few lumps of butter because the butter wasn't quite
we
soft
do know
enough.
that you suffer from non-diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder.
Absolutely.
No, not really. But Paul is a bit focused on details, as we know. I'm amazed, to be honest, that you've only washed your hands like once in this video.
I know.
Other than obviously before cooking, Paul always
Nope.
washes his hands.
Don't worry, the icing sugar is on my hands as we speak, and it's really paining me because my hands feel sticky.
Another bit of behind the scenes knowledge is that I shout at Paul every time he wanders off camera to wash his hands for no reason. I don't mind when he washes his hand at the beginning or end of the recipe or whatever, but sometimes Paul wants to wash his hands because a crumb has touched his thumb.
Yes. I can't help it. Just me.
Anyway, so it's looking nice and smooth and white. We're ready to rumble. Get rid of those.
Get rid of them. Get your glass.
Here's a lovely pint glass and a piping tube, or what do you call it? Piping bag. Yeah, of course. There you go. And as usual, as we've told you before, you can get all sorts of nozzles and things. If you're getting a nozzle, stick it in first.
We had one that you can make like rose petals with.
That's cool.
I could never use it though.
So there you go.
End up in a big swirl.
Spatula. Straight into the bag. Scoop it all up in so it's nice and gathered together, and then you can try and get it in one big lump. That's the idea.
It's easy to just go in one big lump. And if you can get somebody to hold the bag, it's far easier. But obviously Jack is holding the camera, so I can't really ask him to hold the bag and the camera at the same time.
Holding the camera, looking for spatulas under the cupboard, messing about on my phone.
Finding scissors.
Who knows what I was doing at this exact moment.
But you just guide it all in and it'll just drop in beautifully.
I think, to be honest, I was on my phone at this point.
Yeah, I think you had something to do. I think you're trying to sort of use multitasking.
I do like to do a bit of a multitasking. Paul feels very neglected. Anyway, here we go. So icing's in the bag. It's ready to go.
Bring your carrot cake muffins back into shot.
And these are completely cooled.
Yes.
Like, not even slightly warm to the touch.
No, you don't want them to be slightly warm because it'll just melt.
And then you'll end up with soupy icing and you'll be sad.
Yes.
Anyway, cut the top off.
Twist the bag.
And just bring the icing forwards. You can see it's already coming out a little bit at the end there. It's nice and soft. It's ready to go. And then get as fancy with it as you want to, or don't. It's entirely up to you.
I mean, I just go for a nice little swirl effect, to be honest.
And, you know, if you want to go crazy, you can get a cocktail stick or a little offset spatula and start making little patterns in it. You can do whatever you like.
You can.
This is entirely up to you.
Once you get more and more confident, it'll come easier and you'll get more confident to try.
Oh, look, I was messing around with the zoom at this point. I must have been off my phone. No, I just wanted to give everyone a nice little close-up.
But you can see it's good cream cheese frosting because it's holding shape. That's what you want it to do.
It looks great.
You want it to hold its shape. You don't want it to...
I ate, like, at least one of these afterwards.
I think so.
Jose ate, like, 4 of them.
I think we took both one home for Chloe and Michelle.
We did. Our lovely partners both got very lucky with a carrot cake that day. It's the joy of Mondays of baking. We bake on a Monday, you see, when we make these videos.
We do.
And often Chloe and Michelle get very lucky and get to take a little cake home.
There's lots of offerings on hand on a Monday.
Absolutely. There we go.
We actually had excess cream cheese frosting left over.
Not a complaint in my book. Not an issue for me. And so they're looking absolutely fantastic.
And you can actually keep that in the fridge.
I think you and I might be having a conversation here. Yeah, you can keep it in the fridge for how long? Here we go. Cinnamon.
About 3 days, I'd say.
As always, what's the answer? If something's good, what's in it?
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon.
So add a little bit of cinnamon on top of these. You could also put a little bit of crumbled walnut on top, or a whole walnut.
I love it.
Decorate it how you wish.
Do you know what I love about the cinnamon? Because it falls on, it shows all those little ripples in the icing.
Yeah.
Where you wouldn't normally necessarily pick up on all those little details that you've made in the pattern. That cinnamon just pops.
It just finds the little crevices and hides in it and
goes. You
could
sieve the cinnamon to just really evenly dust it across, couldn't you?
You could. I mean, I
know you're allergic to sieves.
I'm not a fan of that cinnamon shaker. I'd prefer a better one.
I went out of focus there. Hey!
Now on to the money shot.
Look at the glamour shot. Ba-bow, bow, bow. Oh, yeah. Those. Fantastic.
Beautiful.
They were delicious. They were easy to make. They're way quicker than you think, and the measurements are nice and easy. As always, please let us know if you have a little go.
Yes.
Let us know if there's a recipe you want us to do. We currently, it takes about 4 weeks for a recipe you suggest for us to make it, but, please suggest it and then you'll see it soon.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, fantastic. And next time, we're making ploughman sausage rolls.
Well, hey.
Oh, yeah.
They were tasty.